It's a me.
It's us.
Ben. Yeah. Hey, all. Everybody, welcome to Ice Cream You Meme, the podcast about spooky stuff on the internet.
And I'm JD. Me. Ben and I recently saw each other in real life.
Yeah, we actually did a couple podcast related things.
Yeah,
too.
so that'll come. We finally did our reenaction of Creep, which is good. I realized that I probably can't post that exact video on TikTok because we'll get shadow banned again.
Yeah,
so
right.
I had to hot cheesing. I had to on Premiere censor it frame by frame. It's in the drive. You can go look at it yourself, Ben, and everyone else. You'll probably have seen it during the Slenderman episode, but I literally spent an hour frame by frame censoring it.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
If you see the back of my head right now, it's not pretty.
So he came over here. I did a crime on him. He left. Usual friend stuff.
Yeah, we looked up stuff about cars. For 2 hours solidly.
Yeah. We listened to the entirety of Andre 3000's new album. So we're good people. We're good, true, honest people. And while we were doing that, we were on Wikipedia doing dark deeds. We made the TikToks. I had planned on feeding Ben durian, but I remembered it as we were leaving to go get dinner with my brother, who is our music guy, and my sister-in-law. We had good food, and my brother was like, "You and Ben have a strategy both on the podcast and outside of it," because he noticed that when we were ordering, you said the stuff, and I was just like, "This is what I want." And I was like, "I think that's just how it just comes." I think
we've worked together for a while now, and I think even before starting the podcast, we had a classmate. That's how we started out. Was together in the class. So I think we've always had that kind of division of labor.
Yeah.
Break things down.
Yeah.
Take them down together.
So my brother was really amazed about that. You did mention that you watched that one show with was a recommended show. You said, fuck.
That one show.
Shit, it's a game.
Ready, JD.
I didn't. I literally, all I had was
Plan.
Yeah, I literally all I have here is Boo Facts for Ben, which is Sung Kwan from that show. The guy from 17 that you said was.
He's very sweet. He's a sweet.
He's very sweet. Yeah, and my friend listens to and loves 17, and he happens to be her favorite. So she wants me to tell you the following things because we talked about it. She gave me some song recommendations for you. There's 3 of them. I'll send you that later. And then she says, he was born in 1998. we need to know this, really. Okay. And then he frequently gets the bridge in any of the songs because he can really, really sing. So that is Boo Facts for Ben.
Thank you, Boo. And thank you, your friend.
I
really liked him on the show. He was very, very sweet singing guy. He didn't get to flex his singing skills, but he just seemed like such a pleasant, nice person. I was very into him.
Apparently, he has a lot of charisma, so that he's. My friend was like, idols usually have some sort of charisma, but not the level of you can be on the game shows and be on the shows and talk to other people. And he has a lot of it. So you've been rizzed up by Boo Sung Kwan from 17.
I was, for sure, because he had a good level of kind of self-deprecation. Some of the competitors were pretty cocky and feeling themselves, and he was his attitude felt kind of not totally sure why I'm here, but I'm happy to be here. And
okay. See, you got rizzed up by Boo Sung Kwan. He got you. But that's I told Ben I had a bullet. That was, I covered it all within that.
I look forward to those recs for the song.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you're going to send them to me because I will not be able to Google them, I'm sure, if they're in Korean.
Yeah, one of you can ask the EP to help you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Ben's been rizzed up by Boo Sung Kwan. We did some videos together, and when I told the EP that we didn't get to try the durian, she was like, "I'm a little happy about that." And I was like, "In a good way or a bad way?"
Yeah, I think the EP wants to try the durian too.
Oh, okay, so maybe she's like, "I'm happy that Ben missed out."
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got a sour sop smoothie yesterday. Speaking of
how was
tropical fruits, it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was it was super creamy. I think they actually put milk in as well. But I liked the flavor of sour sop, and I feel it's not fully sweet. So I feel maybe that could be a good warm up to durian because there's a little, the aftertaste is not something you just associate with tropical fruit fresh.
Yeah. I think it goes sour sop, jackfruit, and then durian.
Okay.
That's
I like jackfruit. I'm sold on jackfruit already.
Yeah.
So durian is like the final frontier.
The final frontier. If you like jackfruit, there's a Filipino dessert thing that it's called turon, which is like a banana, like a plantain, and then there's it's like cooked in like brown sugar, and there's a jackfruit in it, and it's wrapped in like, I would say it's like wrapped in like a wonton wrapper type rice paper thingy, and then fried, and then it's been fried with the brown sugar, so it's really crispy and really good. And I'll send you photos of it, but it's like truly, honestly, genuinely like one of my favorite like desserts with banana.
That sounds dope. I'm gonna have to track
next
down.
time.
I need
next time you're down here.
For sure, yeah.
I'll make some, so it's like freshly hot, scalding good brown sugar. It's so good.
That sounds dope. Yeah.
But yeah.
And hopefully we'll remember to eat next time.
Yeah. we ate something else, but
our combined ADD, I think, is also part of our issue with why we need to strategize. Is like we're both so all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got distracted by like looking up like Jeremy Clarkson and Cars.
You
from the
guys.
Durian,
the Cars wiki page, you need to get on that thing because they've got some real facts. Yeah. They've got localization.
Yeah, they made some down to like second by second script rundowns for the differences in localization between the UK and the US.
That shit was play by play.
Play by play. Or like a character who you don't even see in the movie. It was just the passion that somebody put into this Cars wiki.
You know, that's and that one video that we saw that was like reported to be like fucking like an hour long, but it was just like the fucking compilation of like how long.
That was shady.
Lightning Do you remember Lightning McQueen's name? It's like Chunky, like Chuckles McFucking haha.
Wait, his real name?
No, when we found the one where it's like, oh, he's like going incognito. He's like covered in mud. His name is like Chuckles McHaha or some shit like that.
But yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
No, but we're now loaded up with Cars facts.
We're loaded up with Cars facts. I saw a video. I did find it and send it to you. It was like Stephen A. Smith, you know, like the news, like sports guy. And somebody called into his show and was like, why isn't Lightning McQueen the GOAT of sports? And he was like, 7 piston cups. And then Stephen A. Smith was like, you trying to tell me Lightning McQueen is the GOAT? He was like, what about my boy? And then he like mentioned like the other guy, like the car with the mustache, you know? He was like 7 piston cups, 8, like he was, and then he like rattled off his accomplishments like from memory. He was like, you trying to tell me Lightning McQueen can stand to that? It's like, oh my god.
Stephen A. Smith, it has an account on the Cars wiki page. He is on the Cars wiki page.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
100%.
But yeah, Lightning McQueen, not the GOAT of sports, according to Stephen A. Smith.
It's the other fucking guy.
It's the other guy. Whatever the fuck his name was. I don't remember.
Mustache car.
The one that we don't know where he was on January 6th.
Shit, yeah. We need to find our own Cars, Ben. Is like creepypastas, is this stuff our Cars wiki page?
I mean, like our podcast is all dedicated to things that people put too much energy into.
Are we not the people who also put so much energy into
we're not here to shit on the Cars wiki people. We're like the same type of people.
We're just on a different subject. Like, we literally told you in the beginning of this that we get sidetracked because of our combined like mental power.
Computing at 30% of our brain. Yeah.
I literally, when I was taking the intro topics, because I'm like, okay, let's like break down how every episode goes. It literally, I'll send you a screenshot of this later, but it says every EP, 1, podcast welcome, 2, random joke bit, 3, conversation that lasts 10 minutes.
2, yeah, exactly. And we're closing right in there.
So. We're at fucking 9:56 right now.
9:56. It's time to pivot. Okay, we're running a tight ship here, as you know. So, JD,
let's go.
As you may have picked up in my intro, we have a theme today in terms of being Nintendo related.
Nintendogs.
Do you have any experience playing Super Mario 64?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Memories associated with it back in like 1996 when it first came out or later?
Not 1996, because I very distinctly remember it playing in the US. So it has to be like 2004 and beyond.
Sure.
Yeah, with like older cousins, right? And then like watching them and then like not knowing how to play video games. And then like I don't get in line because I'm like, I don't know how to play video games, so I'm about to get roasted by my cousins.
Yeah, true. And also I feel like the camera is notoriously fiddly on that game, so that might be rough for you as well.
Yeah, freaking GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 can fuck up my whole shit. Yeah, it's bad.
In the Mario game, you have to like control the camera and yourself separately, which is definitely like
that's not my jam.
Sometimes, no,
that's not me. Yeah,
not for you. But for everybody else with nostalgia, with love in your hearts for Super Mario 64, these are the top 15 serious Super Mario 64 myths that will literally give you night terrors and scare you forever. Seriously? Clip that shit.
Clip that shit. 11 minutes.
11:27.
11:27.
Super Mario 64 was a launch title for the Nintendo 64 all the way back in the dark ages of 1996. So just as old as me. It's fun. It was the first 3D Mario game, and at the time, the openness of the game was pretty revolutionary in terms of controls. Mario was able to run, jump, crouch, crawl, climb, swim, kick, grab, and punch. Beyond this, players could combine regular jumps with other actions to double jump or a triple jump, long jump, backflip, or wall jump, or the notorious glitch, the backwards long jump. Within the context of the game, there was a hub world, Princess Peach's Castle, where players are introduced to the controls, and beyond that, the game becomes finding paintings within the castle that transport the player to different courses, each with different challenges to complete that earn players Power Star. These Power Stars are the key to beating the game. To fight Bowser, the player needs to complete 70 stars, but there are 120 stars total within the game. So players have a lot of freedom in which courses they complete, which challenges they focus on, and this freedom is one of the main draws of the game for both casual players and the more hardcore fan base. There are also plenty of secrets within the game itself, both intentional and unintentional, from levels that players might miss entirely to new glitches that are still being discovered today. As we record this with the game's release date approaching 30 years ago, there is still a dedicated and active player base, particularly in the speedrunning community. If you like this podcast, non-zero chance that you like video essays on random obscure topics on YouTube. And I would suggest checking out Summoning Assault. He's got 3 videos on Super Mario 64 speedrunners and the history of various speedrunning competitions and rivalries.
And cheating scandals.
It's fun stuff. Yeah. There was also a collective effort in 2019 and 2020 by fans to create a PC port of the game, which required, quote, procuring a copy of the ROM, decompiling the ROM to assembly code, and painstakingly converting the assembly code back to C by hand. The newly reconstructed C code was then capable of producing an exact replica of the original assembly code when compiled with the same Silicon Graphics compiler. Now, I don't know what any of that shit means, but it does illustrate the passion that people have poured into this game. The game is viewed as a classic. It's a contender in the debate for the best Mario game of all time and has consistently ranked in the top 10 of IGN's greatest games of all time. But because of the depth of the content, the large amounts of freedom given to the player, the actual secrets, and the way the game encouraged players to explore, as well as the huge popularity of the title, it's also been the source material for many myths, theories, and conspiracies related to the game. So here's a quick rundown of some of my favorites that I came across. Personally, I've been very forthcoming about my love for Waluigi and Wario on the show, back to episode 1. And this myth really spoke to me. It's the concept of the Wario apparition. Partially sourced from a 4chan post that read, quote, "The Wario apparition was created from the subconscious wishes to see him in Mario 64. That shared desire caused him to appear as a horrifying half-start in some copies of the game. That image is what's supposed to look like, but those who encountered it in-game can't even describe what it looked like, as many suffer from memory loss and stroke-like symptoms. If you suspect you're seeing it in-game, it's suggested you shut off the console and immediately. Because once you give it power by witnessing it, it gains power to begin manifesting itself in your reality." There's a visual element to this as well. It's usually consisting of what claims to be a screenshot of Mario being chased down a hallway by a giant disembodied Wario head. So the basis for the Wario apparition seems to be from a Nintendo presentation at E3 back in 1996, where they had Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario and Wario, kill time before a presentation began, speaking through a CGI Wario head.
Show me the Wario head.
This is terrible. Who would buy stuff like this anyway? Oh, what? You think this is fun? You gotta be cuckoo crazy. You want fun? Wario show you fun.
Proceeds to show them Pong, played by lasers.
Love it.
Love it. So that's the basis. And a lot of times you'll see like this image, it'll be like that Wario chasing the 1996 Mario. But that's all it was. Just a promo for the Nintendo 64. And yeah, Wario talking about fun. And that fun being Pong, the one that we all love. Secondly, we have haunted dirt. This is a pretty simple one. People claim to see a spooky face in one texture of dirt that's used in the game. So JD, I'm going to need to call you in on this one as well, because I don't see it at all.
Let me get my papers ready.
You have your pattern recognition is there, as it was in through David. Do you see the face of which they speak?
Damn. Like, I'm trying really hard to like matrix into it.
Yeah.
Like those 2 green dots could be like part of the face, and then like there could be like a mouth below it. But there could also be like eyes on the corner and like a nose kind of thing.
Wow, so you're seeing multiple faces here.
I'm seeing 3. I'm really good at I'm really good at visions.
Visionary.
I'm a visionary. Yeah, I'm able to see 3, but
okay. And is it spooky?
I mean, it just looks like, you know, that tree that's like, this tree's got a face in it that you often get in like those like spam.
Like the tree that smokes the Zaza?
Yeah.
Like that one? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Stoner tree.
Yeah. Are you going to show me the face? Didn't work.
All right. So apparently it is this thing right here on the right.
Oh, okay. Okay. That was the first face that I saw.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. And then I began to see other faces in the wallpaper.
So haunted face confirmed here on
haunted face confirmed.
That's a legit legend.
Look at me.
As far as we're concerned.
Ben, you need to get into my fucking zone, dog. You need to start seeing shit.
Get onto that 4th dimensional chess type shit that you're on.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it. I don't see shit.
You need to consume more caffeine, I think.
Is that what it is? That's the secret to your powers?
Yeah. Caffeine and Adderall, I think, even though you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to do it. But I think that's why I see
stimulants.
Powered by stimulants. Yeah.
That's the secret of this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have the ghoul metal theory, which is based on a sign in the haunted house level, which reads, quote, "You don't stand a ghost of a chance in this house. If you walk out of here, you deserve a ghoul medal." So people have speculated that this refers to a secret star or item that you can collect. But I think it's probably that one's just people overthinking a pun. People put a lot of energy into that one. In a similar sign-based legend, there is a sign on the Power Star statue in the courtyard area, which some claims reads L is real 2401, which I looked at it. I thought it was a stretch to say it. It's kind of like one of those things where like when people point it out, you're kind of like, oh yeah, maybe, you know? But it's an element of like the oldest legend, probably the oldest legend of the game, that Luigi is a secret playable character. In the original game, he is not. In the early days of YouTube, it was basically a meme to claim to show people how to unlock Luigi in Super Mario 64, and then it would all lead to the jump scare of Reagan from The Exorcist, you know, the classic scary maze face.
Yeah.
At the time of this recording, there are at least 6 Super Mario 64 iceberg videos on YouTube. All of them are at least 30 minutes long. One has 5 million views, and there is a dedicated wiki for Conspiracies called the MIPS Whole Wiki. At the time of this recording, the wiki has 791 articles.
We need to step up.
We do. So there's a lot of Super Mario 64. We could do like just a Super Mario 64 conspiracy podcast.
Hell yeah.
So the MIPS Whole Wiki is more of a relative of the SCP Foundation than something claiming to be nonfiction, I think. You might be wondering what MIPS is. How does it relate to Mario? I didn't know at first. If you can pick up that I was speaking in all caps when I said it, MIPS is the name of the yellow rabbit in Mario games. So it is the Mario Rabbit's Whole Wiki, but you might be wondering again, why is it all caps? And here's where the tinfoil comes out. So MIPS stands for the microprocessor without interlocked pipeline stages, which is the type of GPU that the Nintendo 64 used. It's computer architecture stuff that I, again, don't really understand. Sound off in the comments, call me an idiot, do your thing. Engage with the video, please. Well, let's take a quick detour here while we talk about MIPS. So having a MIPS as a component for the console was not a crazy idea, but obviously Nintendo does not create all of the components that go into a console in-house. So in 1993, Nintendo signed a deal with Silicon Graphics Incorporated, SGI, to develop what came to be known as the Reality Coprocessor, a MIPS architecture GPU. It's an essential part of the Nintendo 64, and it's the reason for the, at the time, quite groundbreaking look of N64 games. So you might think we're getting too much in the weeds here talking about the components of the Nintendo 64, but it does tie back into the theme because somebody at SGI wound up leaking a bunch of technical documents, Nintendo, confidential technical documents in 1999 under the file name oman.r. So these documents were central to the early days of Nintendo 64 emulation, which is basically recreating Nintendo 64 games to be playable on the PC. However, because these leaked documents constitute intellectual property, they can't be used as the basis for creating an emulation without the risk of being hit with a cease and desist or a lawsuit. Nintendo has never been a big fan of the emulation scene, so they have definitely cracked down whenever that is cropped up. But the illicit nature of this actual leak is one piece of why this game still has such a consistent element of creepypastas. The MIPS wiki aims to combine new and old theories and legends around the game into a cohesive project, right? So the homepage sets the goals out like this, quote, while Super Mario 64 might have released to critical acclaim and is still treated as a cult classic, underneath the joyous layers of Super Mario 64 lies an insidious monster of human creation, an artificial intelligence so advanced that it examines the player and reshapes the game to their deepest desire. Innocent intent, but when the system starts throwing curveballs at the player, that's when the most monstrous creations and anomalies of the AI come out. So this AI element ties in with one of the most persistent urban legends around Super Mario 64, that every copy is personalized. Now, we do know that not every copy is personalized because, it's like a 8 megabyte game. For one, it seems like but, like the Wario apparition, there is some basis for it that the internet has clung to in this 1995 interview with Shigeru Miyamoto. So I'm going to play a little bit of that for you.
Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto.
We have got the best hardware, Nintendo 64. We can change the image of game.
Which means?
We can make the quite different game from current game. Like the player, the game itself always changes with players playing. The game itself always changes with players playing.
You see that last line there that they repeated, and that they lead into a jump scare, so that's why I paused it right there.
Oh, okay, then I would have killed you.
No, it got me the first time. I would have played it, but it was also like one of the ones where they play the music is as loud as possible. So I was like, I don't want to do that to our listeners, obviously.
Oh, so you're fine to do it to me. Thank you.
Yeah, if this wasn't recorded, yeah, I would just play it.
You would have gotten a very lengthy audio on Instagram. I'm guessing you have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that I read that as every player plays a game differently. That's why I choose for every player. I wouldn't play a game the same way that you have. I'm squirrely about games. I look at everything.
Yeah. I think that there's Shigeru Miyamoto is pretty notorious for mostly doing interviews in Japanese and then having it translated. I think maybe this is partially why, because people have majorly misinterpreted what he said. Because I think that, he's just saying we have cool technology here. It was one of the first 3D early 3D platformer. And, there was a lot of freedom to play however you want to play. I think that's pretty much what's going on there. I don't think there's anything nefarious. So, if you're a masochist and choose to look at the comment section of the video, you're going to see that actually most people agree that it probably, a lot of people were like, I love Miyamoto, he's so great. And also people being like, yeah, I think he maybe just people are misinterpreting what he said. I think he was probably trying to say something else. But there's also the truth seekers, they're the Sigmas that see through the bullshit. And they said, there was one I read a quote, now that I think about it, there might be something behind this. Quote, every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized meme. That sick and fucked up elites have been doing MK Ultra mind control and subliminal messaging for easily over 40 years. Disney is an example of that. Speaking of Disney, I saw a video showing the word sex subliminally put into the background of Wario Land 4. Also, the all-seeing eye is put into a good amount of Nintendo games. Some of them are Wario World, Breath of the Wild, and SM64. But I know there has to be more of them.
Bro is projecting.
He's really stretching for it. Also, it's like, so for my three-dimensional brain, I really don't see any connection or justification for why they believe that every copy of Super Mario 64 has a personalized AI based on their statement of the twisted elites putting sex into the Wario game. That's always been like one of my favorite weird, like kind of Christian conspiracies is like people being like, oh, look at the Lion King. It says like sex in this one frame, you know?
Like the Little Mermaid one where it's actually like true, but like there's a dick in this thing. They're like, that's connected. Yeah. I'm connecting the fucking dots.
Yeah. Satan's trying to get to our kid. Yeah. So I don't think there's personalization. I like at this point, we know the source code was also leaked, and we know that there's no like secret hidden AI that is studying people.
Yeah. I think we're just getting into the space of like games doing that. Cause isn't there like that one game that's like, if you look away from this thing, the game kind of surmises that you're afraid of it and it shows you more of it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right. We're like in the early days of that. Yeah. So like thinking that we were there like 27 years ago is just like, that's not where the technology was. I mean, you know, it's 3D was like pretty groundbreaking back then. That was like, whoa, shit. Like that was what the N64 was built on. It was like, look at this. You can move and you can jump and you follow your character. It's a whole new dimension, which is a big deal back then too. But I think the other reason for the persistence of this legend is that it does leave the door of possibility open, right? If your friend swears that they unlocked Luigi on their game, or they unlocked like an area that no one else has, it's not because they're a little fucking liar. It's that their personalized AI changed the game for them, right?
Oh, God.
If you haven't seen the Wario apparition, it's not because it doesn't exist. It's because the AI has decided that you don't deserve to see it.
Damn.
So it's a solid tool for suspending disbelief. I don't think the MIPS wiki people believe the malevolent AI story that they're kind of building, but I think they've used it effectively to usher in a new era of Super Mario 64 creepy lore. If the first era was kind of defined by those early schoolyard rumors and word of mouth, then the second area is more cohesive and tying all the conspiracies into that one single AI narrative, right? Also, this congregation happened a lot later than I expected, so it seems like 2020 was a key year for this renaissance of Super Mario 64 creepypastas. Nintendo announced that they were going to be releasing a port of Super Mario 64 on Switch, and then also in 2020 there was another Nintendo leak, and this was when the source code for Super Mario 64 was leaked out. So the leak did confirm some long-held beliefs about the game, such as that Luigi was originally intended to be included as a playable character. There was also like all these unused assets that they discovered, including levels and enemies that never made it into the game, and earlier versions of animations and characters. It's all very well documented. Obviously, you know, data miners have gone every corner of it, right? But also this leak just brought like way more attention to Super Mario 64. And as much as there's nostalgia around this game, revisiting as an adult is a slightly eerie experience for some gamers. Several reported that the levels felt empty, even lonely. YouTuber Press Start to Continue describes his experience revisiting the game and entering Peach's Castle. Quote, Peach's Castle is a barren wasteland. When outside, there is absolutely no music or life, outside of some bird chirps and butterflies. Going inside, your mind starts to play more tricks on you. Everything just feels so empty. The many floors, blocked areas, and basement make it resonate with dreamlike appearances. A term that came up when describing Super Mario 64, and in particular the level Wet Dry World, was a, quote, negative emotional aura. Wet Dry World is a water level, which always suck, where players have to raise and lower water to access different areas of that small world. The textures of the world are a mismatch of bricks and gray, and for some reason the skybox, so like the sky in the world, features an edited picture of a real city that is submerged underwater, like edited to look like it's underwater. Players, after figuring out a water puzzle, then descend into a second layer, which is a town partially submerged in water. The emptiness of the town and the fact that Mario's drowning animation is weirdly like accurate, like he kind of just like slumps over and like his legs start to float out. So, you know, you have that in mind. You're in like a town that's completely empty and underwater. And yeah, it's kind of made people think, oh, like everybody down here probably drowned just like Mario. You know, you got some grim implications for an underwater town. There are at least 5 videos specifically dedicated to Wet Dry World. People hate it. But beyond one level or an empty castle, the dreamlike quality of the levels and even the logic of the game seems to be one of the most persistent and relatable elements for players. So, right, players jump into paintings to enter worlds contained within paintings. These range from the insides of clocks to magic carpet rainbow rides to toxic tunnels, sunken ships, or frozen mountaintops. Because of the limitations of the Nintendo 64, all of these levels are basically boxes floating in a void. So pretty much every player has had the experience of jumping over the ledge and watching Mario fall into the endless expanse. You just see him like shrink away into the void.
Mario, no!
As time passed, the dreamlike atmosphere and loneliness of the levels has combined with this layer of nostalgia, and this combination has led to the game being described as liminal by some people. If we think all the way back to 2 years ago when we started this podcast, JD covered liminal spaces in our second episode. As a quick refresher, when we talk about liminality, we're talking about the in-between spaces, neither here nor there, airports, the gas station you pull up to in the middle of the night, the weird hallway at the back of the mall where they had the bathrooms for some reason. Well, I don't think that Super Mario 64 game is a, transitory thing, unless you want to get real insufferable and say that it's a transition between early 2D Marios and the later 3D era. I think that people do feel similar emotions to those evoked by liminal spaces, right? Mm-hmm. Those feelings of nostalgia, but also lostness and uncertainty. The worlds of Super Mario 64 may be familiar, but with over 20 years of advancement in gaming, it's harder not to see the technical limitations of the time. I came across some videos describing Mario's face as lifeless and Bowser appearing like a creepy animatronic. Even things like the Toad characters being transparent until approached by the player, something done to enhance performance, now adds to the uncanniness of the game. In an interview with Polygon, game designer Sam Barlow described Super Mario 64 as, quote, just weird enough you might see malevolence on the corner of your eye. Gorgeous green fields above, demonic dungeons below. Chirpy dinosaurs 1 minute, non-Euclidean ghost houses the next. It's full of fake walls and magical paintings, optical illusions we'd never seen before in 3D. It's a game that really loves to poke at the fabric of its own illusion. There's also an ongoing analog horror series called SM64 Classified. The series is a collaboration with a creator named Mario Nova 64, building ROM files to place Mario into these unsettling horror situations, and the YouTuber Greenio filming and editing the videos. The videos appear to be gameplay footage of a corrupted personalized copy of Super Mario 64. It's like it looked like kind of like footage of a CRT TV, mm-hmm. right? There was, increasingly dark glitches and secrets being revealed to the players and the audience. So like all analog horror, the series is built on recreating older technology and nostalgia. Super Mario 64's allure, both as a classic game and the basis for unsettling rumors, has persisted for almost 30 years. From these early word-of-mouth rumors to seeking horror in the source code to series seeking to recapture that energy and uncertainty of those early rumors and mysteries. The game's dreamlike atmosphere, the way it encouraged players to explore and seek out secrets, and the soundtrack that absolutely fucking smacks are what make it so iconic. And what has kept it compelling for Mario fans, speedrunners, and the conspiracy-minded for nearly 3 decades. Super Mario 64 still going strong.
That's beautiful. I think that your little ending is very beautiful, and like an ode to like the longevity of like games that.
I mean, it's crazy. Also, like the fact that like it's so small, like the file, like our podcast, every episode is like 1,000 times bigger than that in terms of like storage. Just like how far we've come, but also how like it does still hold. Like the controls are still pretty tight. It's still like overall a good game. Like people still say it's like the best Mario game. There's people that believe that, and that's pretty dope. That's
really cool. I think the sort of I think a lot of the things that we cover like really exemplify how like the imagination of people, mm-hmm. even in like the most smallest little topics, like a single frame of like a video game or like a single thing that someone said can like light up like some part of your brain and go like, what if this was mm-hmm. this, or like I believe this and that. It's like really, as we go into our years of doing this, like every like story, like I kind of try and pinpoint like how could someone like imagine like that sort of thing, and like how creative people are when it comes to like these things. Like of course someone's gonna be like sex, MK Ultra, da da da, but like the ones that are like mad interesting to mm-hmm. I don't know, the Wario apparition thing obviously has like some very nice funny bits to it as people who are Wario Waluigi people, but also like I like that one.
I liked it too, and also I mean like I think there is something about like it was like there are like unsettling elements in the game that mm-hmm. are like a lot of people, the videos people were describing like how like this level really scared them as a kid, or mm-hmm. like this thing like so there was like that deep like early childhood like kind of fear around mm-hmm. things, right? Like and like the booze Haunted Mansion one, there's like the famous like piano that it looks like a normal piano, and then you approach it and it's got teeth and it tries to eat Mario, you know. And then there's like a hallway that if you don't have enough stars, it won't let you like go up the stairs, but it will let you enter it. So you just get like into this like endless hallway, and the music like freaks people out or freaked people out when they were kids. So it's like, I think it is effective in that way of kind of capturing like the potential that kids have for seeing things as horrific with like Super Mario 64, you know? Like,
what's the movie that you watched? The kids scary. Yeah, Skidamarink. Forget about it. Just play
Super Mario 64.
Super Mario 64. I'm going to hold back on story-related questions because I have a section in mind where I'm going to ask you kind of things. But I don't know. One question I do have is unrelated to this. Like Nintendo 64, you played on the 64, right?
Yeah. I think that was like probably one of the first video games I played was Super Mario 64. But I was pretty young. I don't think I have much memories of it other than like, I definitely remember being like Bob-omb Battlefield, which is like the first stage. Yeah. The thing I remember most about it is like, I have hands, right? They're pretty okay sized. But when I would hold the controller, I would have to hold it in the most terrible way. Like the controller would be like this big, but then my hands would only cover like this side of it. And I remember hating that for like any of the games we ever played. It was really bad for GoldenEye. The Super Mario, the Nintendo 64 controller was like one of the most fucked up controllers historically. Like it's just so, for our younger listeners, very hard to get your hands around, especially child hands. You know? Yeah. Child
hands you would be holding on like barely to like the first two.
Yeah, there's three things. Like again, like the design has always struck me as bizarre because, like, I think, you know, every other game system is kind of like two things, two hands. And Nintendo back in 1996 was like, no, three things.
What up, three? Yeah, and that was like the most vivid. That's the most vivid memory I have of the Nintendo 64. It's just like the mad struggle for like the controller with my little baby hands.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that made me want to play video games. And you know, historically, I'm not a video game guy.
We'll make a video game guy out of you. More streams to come.
More streams to come. Like, oh my god. But yeah, I like that. That's a very good. How did you feel about like the analog horror aspect of it as someone who came off from doing analog horror recently? Did you like look at it? Did you watch any of the clips from it?
I watched a couple of clips of it. There's like multiple seasons of it now, and I was like, I can't go through all these. But yeah, I appreciated like the effort to like make it look like it was films from like a CRT TV, you know? And I think it was just like cool because like the Polygon story was where they talked about like the collaboration. So I think like it is a cool project in terms of like, you know, they have like, now you can actually make like Super Mario 64 horror because of how it has been like reverse engineered that can do things that you'd never had in the game. So it does like kind of try to make some of those early legends like come to life in some ways. And it's possible because of the ROMs and the hacking. So I think that's pretty dope.
That's the smarter the 10-year-olds get when it comes to video games and getting into them, the wilder things get when they're 16 and they're remaking them and making them creepier. But yeah,
that's why we have Skibbity Toilet.
and the literally you were like, oh yeah, this was made in 1998, almost 30 years ago. I was like, Ben, might as well just call me a senior citizen. Stop it.
96. I mean, look, it's the same age as me. It's, you know.
And I'm like, I turned 29 next week. Leave me alone.
I mean, hey, time moves on.
Time do be passive. But yeah. Ben, hold on to your video game horror thoughts and
Gamers Assemble.
Yeah. We're talking about something else, but before I talk about that something else, this section's topic discusses suicide. If you do not wish to listen or read this, if you're in our website, thank you for listening to Ben's section of the episode today. The first part was written by Ben. Music at the beginning was by my brother. You're break. If you have anything to share with Ben, icecreammeme@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll catch you next time. For those staying, please know that I am absolutely fine if you decide to stop listening after one sentence from me. I know you've done it before. Just kidding. No. Whether it be one sentence, 5 sentences, 40 sentences, if you need to skip my part, that's okay. I will very clearly indicate when I start discussing the topic and then say when it's done. I'll give obvious notes to when it starts and when it ends. In my script, bunch of links for you, for your safety. I love you so much. Thank you. But if you're going to stay with us, hi. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Anyway. Okay. Ben, I told you to make a me.
I mean,
right.
Yeah.
We're gonna post that on Instagram. We're not gonna look at it right now. It was a very good me. When you see it with this episode, go look at Ben's me. Mine is boring as shit. I just made my face really small. Ben's is actually pretty freaking good.
I like your me.
Mine is like my face is right here for the me, and I made the glasses as small as possible. If you're a polygon person or a my brother and me person, that's an ode to Vicky Victorious. When they were making it on Monster Factory, they made her face like super mad small, and that's how
tiny face.
Yeah. Well, so I was like, this is peak comedy, small face on a me, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Now take that me that you've made, pull up on that me, and envision that me on an island, right? On a beautiful island. Think of your me wife.
Like a Wii Sports Resort type island? Or?
No. An island, a personalized island.
Personalized, okay.
Personalized island, right? Think of your me wife, husband, partner, and imagine a daily visit from a benevolent God that feeds you, clothes you, decides who you date, who you're friends with, and all that fancy jazz. We're not talking Sims. We're talking Tomodachi Life, okay? Now, Ben, do you know anything about Tomodachi Life other than when we were looking for topics?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Tomodachi Life is it's a game on the Nintendo DS, so we're still in the Nintendo. We're Nintendogs today. Released in Japan on 2013, North America, Europe, Australia, and South Korea in 2014. Known as Tomodachi. Read it on the script. I put it in there for your reading pleasure, right? You basically play on an island with characters that you make on your own, or by importing it the same way you would kind of do like amiibo characters, but like in 2014. Tomodachi Life was a good game, but it was one of those very like camp games. Like if you think of like everyone like, oh, camp, The Room, oh, hi, Mark. Like everyone likes it a little bit after, right? I don't remember it being a thing that my friends played like 10 years ago.
Mm.
I also just didn't have a DS at all, like, so I wouldn't really know.
You skipped that era.
Yeah, I skipped that era. The DS, I did remember the original silver one. We played in like elementary school, right? Like we'd go on like field trips to like old Sacramento, and like we'd be sending people like pictures on that like drawing chat app, kind of thing. But yeah, I have a Nintendo 3DS, so it's the blue piece of toast looking one that I play Pokemon and Animal Crossing on. But when I first really came into Tomodachi Life, it was when my brother showed me videos from a YouTuber called Poofisher. It's like professor, whatever, who has a pretty hilarious a series about the game centered around a character called Beef Boss, which he made. This was 4 years ago, and it had a pretty good couple of million views for like the whole series. So like one video could be like 2.2 million. Sure. And it's just like the adventures of Beef Boss and like Poofisher like being really loud and yelling. It is a pretty good comedic intro into Tomodachi Life and its capabilities. So I recommend you checking it out if you're like, what is Tomodachi Life? Blah, 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 blah. And now it's at this point where you're like, JD, you just told me about a video game. Now what? Right. Here is where we talk about Dying Happy, which is a creepypasta written by Umbrello. Our friend Umbi, Poco-chan, according to their Twitter, is very experienced in Nintendo products. If you go on their Twitter, we can see a whole bunch of like Animal Crossing content. And it's basically the Twitter feed of someone that you would not necessarily think that would have made something called Dying Happy. But they are. If we, as per usual, when someone writes a creepypasta, I tend to look into their background, not like the FBI, but like just looking at what they've commented on the internet, just to see if I should be saying their name, if I should be uttering their name, right? If you look through like Umbi's Bandcamp, right, you can see songs such as "I Break For," "Naked People Covered in Diarrhea," which is arguably, when I listen to it, a very good and catchy song. So one of the lyrics is, "So if someone's buck naked, dripping feces head to toe, you can be sure that I'll be driving very, very slow," right? And then we have "Rocket in My Pocket," which once again, I'm not even joking, like good instrumental. The lyrics are actually pretty fine. Like they're good, right?
I like that last line. That was solid,
This A Rocket in My Pocket, the lyrics, it has got a rocket in my pocket and I'm gonna explode. Got a rocket in my pocket, gotta shoot a motherfucking load, shoot a motherfucking load. If you're a fan of Worthy Kids, which does a lot of those like those big top burger things, you might have seen like the Yoda, the Star Wars kinds of stuff. Like I'll send you a couple of them. They're pretty good. Yeah. They have a series called Big Top Burger, which focuses on like 2 food trucks and the employees in it, and it's really good. Ben, I think you'd like this one. And if you are a fan of that, I'm not shitting you when I say that the songs kind of remind me of anything that Ian Worthy Kids made, and they're pretty good. Like go on to Poca-chan's Bandcamp on Bandcamp Fridays and go get you one of those songs. Yeah. But
high praise.
Yeah. So has range, right? Go from this little creepypasta to very good like composition songs, that kind of thing, right? But Dying Happy is a typical sort of story of a haunted video game, right? We've done a couple on the show. Ben's just done one, and it has all the usual components. Someone acquires a video game, the game does something to them, someone dies one way or another, and there's a lesson learned. Dying Happy is a variation, not a copy, I would argue, because tropes and stories work for a reason, right? Okay, it's at this point that I'm going to discuss the story. I'm going to stay away from directly discussing suicide, but I'm going to warn that I do say the word, okay? So we're starting here, okay? Dying Happy, written by focuses on the main character's experience with Tomodachi Life after their friend Owen passes for unknown reasons. We start with the main character talking about how they and their friend Owen they were planning on getting Smash Bros together, right? We find out that Owen gets Tomodachi Life instead because he's like, I'm very interested in it. I saw it on YouTube, and he starts to play it. He has an interesting and fun time in it and relays stories to our main character, who doesn't have a name, so I'll just keep calling him. However, with all the fun, you know what's coming from a haunted video game creepypasta. There's a random character that appears in the game, right? Owen shares that the game didn't actually allow him to make a character just like you could in any of these life simulation games. However, there was already a character there, Mr. Happy. Maine suggests that maybe it's because Owen bought a used copy, and they're like, okay, cool. Maybe it is because I bought a used copy and I got this creepy little guy in here. Owen shares that I guess Mr. Happy's like a weirdo guy, and they sing a song. He sings a song called Everybody's Dying Happy, and they have a laugh about it because they're edgy and they think the song about suicide is comical. However, as with every haunted video game based story, something negative happens. Owen's wife, Jenny, tells our main that Owen has passed, and they're both shocked as this is not something that they would have expected. After some time, Maine gets Tomodachi Life in order to feel closer to their friend Owen, and it's like completely good. They're like, Owen's living on this island with a beautiful wife. I'm like taking care of him. He's happy in the video game, right? But then he gets an email from Owen, and he's like, what? Posthumous email? And in this email, he it's also linked on the creepypasta. There is a video, a webcam recording of Mr. Happy and his song. I am now going to say the words of the songs, which trigger warning does mention the word suicide. So, quote, everybody's dying happy. It's so awesome whenever people die. They are not alive anymore. It makes me happy. I've never been so happy. Let's all die, hold hands, jump to our deaths. Our brains will splatter. Happy, death is so cool. Let's all commit. And after this, Mr. Happy infiltrates the game, systematically has many of the characters disappear, and as per haunted video game rules, we can assume that our main also experiences what Owen went through. That concludes discussion of suicide within the story, right?
Look back.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the basic gist of Dying Happy. So Ben and I both covered haunted video game types of some sort, and I've been taking notes through his section about the storytelling. Together, Ben, you and I, and people at home, we're going to do an exercise based on what we've gone through the podcast with regards to storytelling in the haunted space, and basically what makes a scary story scary. So in my guy, Dying Happy, the game is Tomodachi Life. The hero and the friends are Maine, Owen, Jenny. The method of the haunting is a character appears in the game, can manipulate the game, the characters, and people outside of the world. The monster is Mr. Happy. The solution or the end of it is that the characters in the game and in real life will die. And the lesson embedded in the story is maybe get a different video game kind of thing, right? So if we were to look at any of the conspiracy theories that are attached to
the Wario apparition.
Yeah. So for the Wario apparition, we have the game that is Super Mario 64. The hero and the friends is basically the person. The player. Yeah. Right, sure. And the method of the haunting is...
What was it? The personalization AI?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the monster is, I guess, Wario's big ass head.
Yeah, big ass head. Yeah.
The solution, like basically how it ends, or how, like, what happens when you get
pretty thin. I mean, it seems like from that original 4chan post, there was like the idea that like if you see the Wario apparition, you'll start seeing it in real life. They don't really bring in much more than that. Mostly that one is like screenshots of like people claiming to see the Wario apparition.
Okay. Yeah, and then what do you think is like sort of maybe not necessarily like word lesson, but like what is the thing that is embedded in the story of like, maybe it could be like what you said about like the personalization of the AI thing, like just because you see it, your friend sees it doesn't mean you get to see it, blah blah blah, AI, blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah. I guess we don't necessarily know like the motives of the personalization AI, but it could be. I think if we were doing like a horror thing, we would probably put it as like a punishment for something done in the game, right? Okay. Maybe you kill too many Goombas. Ooh. Or like throw MIPS, you drown MIPS or something like that. Okay. And then you see the Wario AI because you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. See, that's. I think I would believe that. That's fully me believing everything you said, right? Yeah. So based on these like commonalities within these two things that we discussed that were made by completely different people, let's examine what makes a good haunting story within the context of gaming or games. If we look back at when I was roasting Adam Ellis on episode 18 for Dear David, a good story, a good one, goes like this. I stole it from myself, so I'm plagiarization myself, right? A good story, you must have a storyline that makes some sense. There has to be a sort of drama, not the Housewives kind, but something that shows a sort of want or struggle that your characters will go through. Your characters have to feel grounded in some way, whether it be in their fantasy setting or a regular old city in 2023. They don't need to be relatable, but they should be compelling in some way, and they must be developed in a way that helps the story move forward. Your story must have a sense of tone, voice. Lastly, there must be a theme that can be understood by the readers, can give them some sort of insight on themselves or the world, and this theme should connect the story together. Now, when we apply that to paranormal and haunting stories like the video game-based ones we discussed, we have a pretty good storyline in Dying Happy. Two friends want to get a game, but one of them deviates and something bad happens. The drama is in Owen's deviation, passing, and the main character following that same trajectory, sort of unknowingly as they honor their late friends. These characters feel grounded. It's just the main, Owen and Jenny. They're people that we could know and nothing about them stands out too much, right? They could be you and me. Relatable in a way. They just want to play Smash Bros. Don't we all, right? The tone of the story could allude to the idea of death and dying and what it means to do so. But we do get an explicit note from Umbi about how, quote, this pasta is not intended to glorify suicide in any way. I would never, ever want anyone to take their own life. It's just a story. So that right there could set the tone of the story, because it literally is the first part of the creepypasta. So you're not getting it at the end, you're getting it at the beginning, right? Obviously, as it is in terms of tone, voice, the voice of the story is in first person point of view, which adds an additional sense of horror or fear to the story as we're reading about it from someone who may have posted this prior to their passing, right? The story then becomes the aftermath or evidence of something that's occurred, right? They posted it before they passed, but now they're like, we're just seeing it as like, oh, this could explain what happened to them, right? With that point of view, it makes it a little more different than if it was in third person, like omniscient, right? We're not viewing it from an all-knowing point of view that doesn't have too many questions because it can explain everything, right? We're getting it from a single point of view that never gets cleared up by the end of it all because the main is no longer alive, right? I think for me, this helps make an effective haunting story. While yes, it would be interesting to find out if it was truly some sort of cursed copy and whether this is something that someone made and put out into the world for some wild reason, the mystery of seeing it from the point of view of an unknowing victim who just wanted to play a video game that their friend played before their passing, it's pretty interesting, at least to me, right? But what makes an effective haunted or haunting story? Let's go back. Throwback. There's a lot of throwbacks in this episode to previous episodes that we had, right? Let's consider this house has people in it. Think back on what made it an effective, scary story. In my conclusion for that episode, I said, this house has people in it is fantastic at using the mundane as a lure and baiting you into the bizarre. It utilizes the home, self, and external forces as a wonderful way to scare you. It brings into question the idea of home safety and what this means for us and the characters in the infomercial as they find terror in their home that they cannot escape because it lives in them. In the midst of this terror generator, in the is the openness and encouragement from the creators and the joy in the fan creation, that kind of stuff, right? It's scary because of this concept of the mundane getting like flipped on its side. You're safe in your home, but turns out you're not because it's in you. Turns out the monster was a friend. They were the friends we made along the way, right? I'd like to apply the same train of thought to our specific video game based haunt, and would love for you to consider any of the stories that Ben shared and see if any of them fits right in here, but also the previous video games that we've covered, right? We did like Lavender Town, we've done Ben Drowned, and we'll continue to do some more once we find, right? So in this case, for Dying Happy, we are in a real setting, nothing outright fantastical or magical about it, just some guys in a weird video game. We can consider this as mundanity as a lure. You have no expectations to be scared of Tomodachi Life video game. The same way that you don't have expectations of getting scared in The Sims, in Animal Crossing. Nothing should go wrong, but when it does, that's an allure. That's a lure for the story, right? What went wrong? Why? How can I replicate it, right? This happened in Animal Crossing. They saw Isabelle make a scary face. Can I replicate it? That kind of thing, right? I believe that some of the most effective haunting stories for me are rooted in some form of reality that is shaken up. I'm more deeply arrested by a normal day absolutely getting busted up by some kid that shows up and rocks the whole neighborhood than I am of large fantastical beings that like live in the mountains, right? Because I don't have access to the bizarreness of a mountain. So this is almost like beyond me, right? Now you, a creamy, might have access to the mountains and feel this sort of concept is much more closer than you than some sort of cul-de-sac based horror, right? So it's different for each of us. And so the effectiveness of the haunted story changes for each one of us, right? It's part of why I think for me, horror movies with like people of color scare me more than like horror movies focused on like white protagonists, right? Is it some idea of deserving the scare because of historical issues, or is it that these people do not look like most of my family and friends, so it doesn't touch me as much as it would if it was like an Asian family or like a group of friends that like mirror mine, right? I don't see it happening to me, so it might scare me a little because regardless of anything, it's still a scary concept, right? I'm not gonna be like, it happened to you, so it doesn't happen. I'm still scared, but I'm like, that happened to you. It's scary, right? But it doesn't go pretty deep into the caverns of my chest as if it was like some sort of like Filipino horror movie that I still want to watch after the teen years, right? That's like deep cut. I know exactly which one it is, and it scares me still, right? And I think that an effective haunting sometimes needs a good villain, not necessarily always like this bad guy who's like, hey, I'm gonna fucking kill your entire family, right? Whether it be in the form of a ghost that stalks you, a cursed book, or a house that laughs at you when you brush your teeth, that kind of thing, right? So Mr. Happy might be bizarre, but it's in the background of something comical, nothing close to the human form, right? Me's are weird, right? If you look at my me, like we said in the beginning, small little face. Ben's me is like really interesting looking, but handsome. It's right. So me's are inherently kind of can be weird. You can make them nice and normal, but right, Mr. Happy is still something that could be created in Tomodachi Life. So maybe if you sort of play that video game, you kind of see Mr. Happy, you're just like, oh, someone's kid made a guy, right? There's the normality in that gets fucked up when you realize that you didn't make him and he's not a typical character, right? That's where it gets scary, right? The haunting, I believe, makes an effective haunting story, right? Because some of us will watch, like you didn't care for Skinamarink. It wasn't effective to you, right? But it's like, think of all the best scary and haunting stories for ourselves, right? As we take on a personal look into effective hauntings. Why does the haunting scare you in particular? Is it the way a large smile appears in the mirror? Is it the way that the wallpapers shake for some reason and peel on their own? Is it the idea of a young child quietly circling a tree, paying no attention to everyone around them? Is it the image of a young man's body floating in their backyard up a treehouse? Is it a Fisher toy phone getting zoomed in on really quickly, right? What GBs your heebies and makes it effective, right? I'm going to now turn this on to you, Ben. What, just like it can be within the stuff that we've looked at together or something like that, like, but what makes an effective haunting story for you? Do you have any like memorable ones that like you read it once, you watched it once, and you're just like, this one is actually genuinely scary? Maybe not like keeps you up at night scary, but like it sat in you in the caverns of your chest. It was actually scary.
I mean, there's definitely like little tropes that will usually get to me. Like I think like the idea of something fucking with you while you're in bed always gets like whenever it's something like, you know, pulling the sheets off or like yanking your leg or something like that. I think that's just like the basic like vulnerability of like being cozy in bed and the idea of that vulnerability being taken advantage of by like a ghost or ghoul or whatever. So whenever I see that'll usually get me. Yeah, and that could be solid in like the paranormal activity world, any kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a particular horror. I remember thinking that The Conjuring was very scary the first time I saw it, probably back in high school. And I still stand by that. And then I think like in terms of effective horror, I still would say that like It Follows is up there as one of the most kind of effective ones. Not necessarily a haunting, but it is I guess it's haunting, possession. You're like, it is specific to a person. And it's like, you know, just like this unstoppable thing that you see coming and you know it's coming, but you can't do anything to prevent it. I think that kind of inevitability was like a part of what makes that movie so effective.
Is that something like for you in terms of your level of like, are you easily scared? Is it like pretty difficult to scare you? Like, is that sort of in line with like where you would be in the like range of like how scared you get, right? Like, does you not having a very specific memory of a story that really was like effective to you fall in line where you are on that range?
Yeah, I would say like I watch a fair amount of horror, and I've been into horror for like many years now, and I think I'm a little hard to scare because I think there is like the element of tropes and that you kind of see, you know, things that rhyme with each other or directly like riff on each other, and that lowers the amount of scariness of certain things. I think it's similar to you, like probably based on my own beliefs in terms of like sometimes horror that is not like spooky ghost or like, you know, very supernatural can be like more creepy, kind of like Strangers, something like that, like a home invasion story thing that can be pretty effectively scary for me because I think like, you know, it's kind of like being able to suspend the disbelief and believe that something like this could happen is part of what makes like a horror story scary too.
Yeah. And I know we've asked this question already, but I think it was like in the beginnings of our recordings kind of thing. Do you think that as we investigate a lot of these things a little bit more, like look into like the scaries behind things, does it like sort of remove a little bit more of the scares for you where like you would have thought something was a little scary before we started this, but now like as we've just kind of like put our fingers into every single pie, we're now just like, oh, it's scary because of this, so I'm no longer scared of that, or like it doesn't get me as much anymore.
Yeah, I think there's that element. I mean, it's kind of like just exposure therapy, basically. It's just like, okay, well, we've seen how many of these stories, you know, about like various spirits or ghosts or crawlers or anything like that. You kind of, the more you're able to categorize things, I think a little bit less scary things get. And also like, the more you start to kind of view things, especially like I feel like on internet horror, which I think the strong point is when you can kind of suspend that disbelief and be like, oh, this is like a story that somebody's just like, oh my God, they're so freaked out. And they went to like Reddit/crawlers to share their story. Right. And then you can kind of believe like, oh, maybe this really happened. Or maybe they really did see something they didn't understand. Right. But then I think sometimes you kind of see behind the curtain a little too much when you like, you know, you start seeing the same names, you're like the same kind of writing tropes as well there, where you're like, okay, like you probably, okay, sure, you didn't, I don't think you really saw it. But it's fine, it's fun, you're having fun with it.
Listeners, creamies, I invite you to also think of these things in terms of like any like horror creepypastas that you've seen, not just within the video game realm. Kind of investigate yourself, whether listening to podcasts like this that sort of tell you it's not as scary as you think it is in like the most gentlest of ways, whether that can sort of alleviate some of the fears for you. But like for me personally, it does a lot of that stuff to me, but there is still my mountain to climb of the smile dog, right? It's in my topics to cover, but I think that's one of the photos for me. And I think it's less about the story and more about I don't like the picture, right? In real life, I know my housemate in college had a husky mixed dog, but it was like cute, sometimes husky Siberians get a little like funky looking when they're sitting in the dark staring at you. And I know that she had like a dog food bag that had a very scary looking one on it. And I was just like, please turn this food bag around. Like that kind of thing. And that lends to like, I think it started with like the smile dog kind of thing. So that'll be like my mountain climb. Because I have gotten over the scary Squidward face.
Over a lot of stuff,
but I've gotten over a lot of stuff. The scary Squidward thing is just like, I'll see it and I'll be fine as long as I encounter it like within, like with my consent. But if it's like someone said that to me, I'd be like, fuck you. But like, I know I'm over it, but I'm also like, I don't want to like revisit that fear. But yeah.
Right, yeah.
That kind of thing. Well, we all have a little mountain to climb, that kind of thing. But yeah. To round this off, I think in terms of effective haunting stories, kind of like this, like we'll continue to see haunted video game concepts, like as we get into like we mentioned in Ben's section, like some of the games that are coming out that reshape around the player, what you look at, what you tend to look away from, kind of thing, right? We'll get, I think, some newer levels of the haunted video game aspect where it's going to be from a different style other than like this thing popped up out of nowhere. Because, you know, in future video games, this thing could pop up out of nowhere, right? What's that video game that like, it's an older video game that like is like, oh, I got into your files and now I'm going to like.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah. So we'll get a new level of that where like now it turned on your webcam and here's a photo of you getting fucking scared like 2 nights ago when your computer wasn't even on, that kind of thing.
Do you remember the one where it was like there was like one of those games that like pulls from your files, and I think it pulled like a picture of like Mr. Krabs working or just like something like that, right? And it was like, I'm in your house right now. I'm in your files, and it pulled up like Mr. Krabs' ass cheek photo.
Stop. But yeah,
like, you got me.
Yeah, you got me, Mr. Krabs' ass cheek photo, right? But we'll get into newer levels of that. But I think the lengths of the one-off creepypastas are wonderful at exercising your storytelling abilities. Oftentimes, even those that are bad still have a little bit of flavor of interest to it. Dying Happy is a part of a series of haunted video game stories that still manage to sort of switch up the story, no matter how many of them we do end up doing on the show. Its effectiveness lies in the person consuming the story, just as with every story, whether they buy into the scare of it. It's a good reminder that we do not all fear the same thing, and we should examine why. Not so we can scare our friends in a very customized way, right? Like, don't get into the freaking ice cream Gmail and like send like fucking smile dog, right? But so that we can further understand how to build a story that can be just as or even more effective in its haunting. And that is Dying Happy. Let's go.
Yeah, that's good. It was a very structural segment. I like the way you kind of broke down the elements. You broke down the base elements of Spooky Story. With that kind of in mind, what do you think, if anything, kind of separates like a haunted video game from like an earlier form of like haunted media in terms of storytelling? Do you think there's anything there that's different than you were doing like a haunted book or something? Yeah.
Video game, I think it's like the level of involvement that you would have in a video game, right? You're like an active player in it. Because like a book is like everyone knows how to handle a book. You just read it, right? Everyone experience, like we said, like people play a video game differently. Whenever you're watching some of the people who like stream on Twitch or like record their whole thing, like you're like, oh, I wouldn't have jumped into that thing, right? I wouldn't have da-da-da. But everyone sort of reads a book the same way, right? And like here, our books are turned this way. We read them from here. Some people, you know, different methods of reading a book, but it all gets consumed in the same way, right? Yeah. But video games, because of how differently you can play this, of like a friend, like in the Wario thing, right? Oh, you didn't see Wario because you weren't worthy of it, or like you didn't see this ladder because you're not squirrely enough as a video game, right? It's sort of the personalized aspect of it, and like, how come I couldn't experience this sort of scary thing? Yeah. That kind of thing. Like, whereas like book-based sort of things is just all you had to do was read this line and you open the book. You're a virgin and you open the book. That kind of thing. You're a virgin and you played
active engagement.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Active engagement in the thing, and the replicability of it could be different as opposed to staring at a painting or, you know. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting area. I mean, it makes we've talked about like how the haunted video game idea kind of goes back to like the very first, like all the way back to like the 80s. You know, people have always kind of had these ideas that's like certain games have like a certain uncanniness to them or strangeness. And I think like the mind control stuff has always been there too. The MK Ultra type shit. Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's not going anywhere. I mean, obviously, this is another thing where it's like, I think the more, we can always kind of find more haunted video games, like, because, I think partially, like, with the Super Mario thing, I was kind of thinking about how, like, or like Smile Dog for you, like, just like how, like, childhood horrors kind of stick with you, or like younger horrors. Like, when you're talking about, like, the scary dog food, I was remembering when, like, I would stay with my cousins while my parents were at work, and she had like a picture, like an M.C. Escher painting with like a guy where like his head was like pulled open and there was like a maze in his head, and I was like so scared of it that like when I was like 7, I'd be like, you have to put away the painting before I come over. I don't want to see it.
It's like I talked about it before. Like, one of my aunts had like really scary, like traditional like Asian dolls in her home, and they would be like in like glass cages, and I would hate that hallway because I'm just like, why the fuck are these in here? It's just so bad. And like thinking of like as we get older, and let's combine this sort of like nostalgia, lost media, and haunted stories, haunted video game stories, right? As we lose access to certain video games, certain like flash games on the internet, you could start saying absolutely anything about these things, because then you're just like, oh, it's lost media. No one's going to find it for like the next 20 years. I can say that I went into X hallway and experienced like a screamer that I had never experienced when I was like 5 years old playing this, right? The combination of some of the things we run into in this podcast as it gets older. Right. You have the nostalgia of like, oh, I do remember playing that video game, but how come lost media pulls in like I can't access it anymore? And also someone saying that they went into this thing. So like the combination as we get like analog horror is like a good like combination of those three things where it's like haunted story, nostalgia, and lost media kind of thing. Right. Yeah.
Right. And I think like the guy behind, what was it, Channel 7? The analog horror series? I can't remember.
Is it
Channel something.
0? Is it 0? I don't know. It's a number.
He also did Candlelight Cove.
Yes.
Or Candle Cove,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so he I think he touched on like that lot. Like he made up a lost media thing and then made like these fake threads of people discussing this like lost media that never existed, but it like was all part of like this like horror world he was building out of like emulating these people that were like looking for something they remember from childhood that scared them.
Yeah. And it's going to be an interesting like development over the years. Like now that we do have like AI in the image generating space of like, oh, you didn't have this. You didn't see this screenshot in the game that I actually just made on like some sort of image generator thing. So it's going to be a complex couple of years coming in terms of like, when will we still have the idea of like pics or it didn't happen in these stories, right? Because now it's to be like, well, pic and it happened, and also, is this real? Right?
Yeah. It's like going to be even harder to call out the bullshitters because I think with like the video game stories, like always there's going to be people that like say that they did things that are impossible.
Like I swear I did it.
Yeah. And especially like, it's weird because like in the era pre like strategy guides being online, pre patch notes for every game, pre source code being out there, it was easy to do it. And then there was like a middle period where it was like, well, now we have all the information. And now I feel like we're getting back to like, you can't trust anything.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much information and so much of it is not accurate or based in reality. And so much of it can be like fabricated too, that we're back to like, okay, the myths are kind of creeping back in here again.
It's going to be an interesting place we're at a very weird place in conspiracy theories right now. And I think it's going to, at least in our realm, like I don't want to be like, and in the realm of pizzas and underground restaurants, in the realm of like our creepypastas and our scary stories online. It's gonna be very interesting how that impacts it, and whether the stories get better, whether we are more able to suspend our disbelief in things and that kind of stuff. Like I was telling my friend the other day, like it's so hard for me to finish like a drama of any sort sometimes when I start going, oh, I don't believe this would happen, because I know it's like a fictional story, but sometimes my brain just shuts down and is like, Like we probably discussed this. Like I'm bad at like fiction reading because sometimes my brain is like I can't compute how this person is sitting down or like how big this thing is. Like I have a good imagination, right? I wouldn't be doing Photoshop business if I was, but it's just sometimes if it's like those kinds of things, like will that be harder for us in the future to suspend disbelief, or will it then be easier because now we're just like, well, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's all. Yeah, I mean the human brain versus technology. Yeah. Technology has won pretty much every time so far. Probably will continue.
Yeah. Continue to get those W's.
Yeah. I was also just thinking about like how AI is always like referential, right? Like I mean, in that we can kind of like I don't think we're going to escape the kind of nostalgia trap that we're in, because as more AI shit comes out, it's not going to create anything that's like truly new, because everything that we have right now, it's just like computing from existing ideas, right? So
it's learning from material that's existing for us already, and then when it starts to not have to make assumptions based on those things, that's when we can be just like, ooh, maybe we stop, maybe stop that, right? I don't. Yeah, well, not as some people might believe that they're immune from nostalgia because they're always looking forward. I think. You're not immune to propaganda, Garfield.
Yeah, and also it's just it's so ubiquitous. Like everything is kind of back to like the kind of a death of the future. Like we cannot imagine a possible future outside of capitalism. We can only reminisce and imagine the futures we used to imagine or anything like that. Everything is just so like self-referential and nostalgic too. Yeah.
It's We'll see in our space and the external world.
We're
getting down.
We have some good video game years coming up.
Yeah, we have good ones. I can't wait for like. I might actively look into this, like for like Animal Crossing related like haunted video game products, right?
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. That's
Animal Crossing AI would be dope too when we get to like where I mean like I feel like that's a good use for AI. It's just like having like very responsive AI that you can like say whatever you want and it will like have like something to say back.
Yeah, like
as like the character.
I'd have fun with real genuine conversations with my characters in Animal Crossing instead of like them repetitively calling me like Spud. I can just be like, please stop calling me Spud.
Yeah. See, so that's the bright future that we may have.
Yeah. I'm wondering about Tom Nook and how much money I owe him and what AI would do to Tom Nook. Like, would he like actively show up at my house, be like, "Hey, your mortgage is due"? I'm just like, Tom Nook, I'm picking apples right now. Please leave me alone.
Slumlord Tom Nook.
Yeah, Loan Shark era, hardcore Loan Shark mod. He like fucking breaks your character's knees. Yeah. He's like, you want to go swim with the fishes? And then like some fucking dude is like, his feet are covered in concrete and he's just like fucking sinking.
On the way for your own creepypasta.
Creepypasta Tom Nook came to my house and fucking broke my kneecaps. Yeah. Nintendogs episode. You didn't know it could get dark like this. You didn't know we could freak like this. You freaking? Yeah, like this, dog.
This episode was written and produced by Ben and JD. For all our sources, please head to the website in the description below. If you would like to reach out with a comment, suggestion, or share an experience with one of our topics today, especially the Wario apparition, send us a message at icecreamumeme@gmail.com. All the music for the podcast is provided by Yager Frank. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye!